the moment is now come that I have the honor to present the first welcome speaker to you to this conference. And she is the host officially of this conference because it's Katarina Figerbank. She's the second mayor, and she is also the Minister of Science, Research, Equalities and Districts of the Free and Hanseatic City of Hamburg. The ministry, as most of you might know, is the leading partner of the Baltic Science Network. And Mrs. Figerbank herself, prior to being a mayor and the science minister, was spokeswoman for European and international affairs of the Green Party Parliament Group until 2015. So I think the European perspective is not at all new to her. So welcome on screen, Katarina. I hope you can hear me right now, and you can now switch on your camera. Wonderful, that works. And now you switch on your microphone. So yeah, the microphone, and then you had it just before, so it must work now. It's just the microphone button below. Yeah, that's it.
That's not a problem. I have a problem with the connection this morning. I hope it'll work.
So great to see you there.
We are all very much used to Zoom and other conferences these days. So.
Yeah, that's what we are all in fear of when a conference starts.
Yeah, exactly.
The internet has a problem right in that moment, but I can hear you well. I can see you very well.
Super,
so,
super.
Die Bühne ist Ihnen, Frau Figerbank. Genau.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. I hope you can see and hear me well. Dear Minister Cionch-Dinjene, dear Mr. Poznansky, it is a pleasure for me to welcome you today to the Baltic Science Network final conference in cooperation with the Baltic Sea Science Day. During recent months, international cooperation, as you all know, was greatly challenging. And while international mobility came almost to a standstill, conferences and workshops had to be cancelled or moved to online formats. But on the other hand, the recent months have also shown the great importance of science and research cooperation. International collaboration and research has greatly intensified in the span of just a few months. The rapid mobilization of so many actors across the world to collaboratively develop and test new therapies and vaccines has been remarkable. And I think we are all very proud of that it could be managed within such a short period of time. Also in the Baltic Science region, we have seen that cooperation in science and research did not come to a standstill. Meetings and workshops have been shifted to digital formats like today's conference. And individual research visits have been taking place whenever possible, particularly during the summertime. Although we are working under different framework conditions, the value of science and research cooperation in the Baltic Science region is still unaffected. The Baltic Science region remains one of the most competitive, innovative science regions in the world. With a richness of excellent research infrastructures and scientists, the Baltic Science region thrives as an area of research excellence and continues to contribute to building a knowledge-based society. The great importance of the region is acknowledged by the Baltic Sea strategy of our government of the Hamburg Senate. It aims at intensifying cooperation between Hamburg scientists and researchers with their colleagues from the Baltic Science regions in order to enhance competitiveness of the regions on global scale. And therefore, the Free and Hanseatic City of Hamburg is immensely proud to host the flagship project of the European strategy for the Baltic Sea region, the Interreg-funded Baltic Science Network Powerhouse Project. During the 5 years since its establishment, the Baltic Science Network has brought together different actors from the science community in the macro region to discuss science policy as an inclusive way. The Baltic Science Network gathered views from representatives of ministries, universities, research institutions, as well as funding agencies to identify major strengths and bottlenecks of the science and research community and develop strategies to foster research and innovation excellence, mobility of scientists, and expanded participation. And although the Powerhouse Project will end in July, the Baltic Science Network will continue. That's good news. During the last 2 years, the Baltic Science Network has successfully piloted 2 innovative instruments, the Launchpad and the Bari Mobility Program. The outcomes will be presented at today's conference together with a new vision for the Baltic Science Network. For today's conference, we've convinced a variety of outstanding experts to participate in the different panels and working groups to discuss how to move towards a new era, European research area for research and innovation in the Baltic Sea region. In different panels and working groups, we will discuss how the macro region can contribute to pan-European research area, as well as priorities of cooperation for the upcoming years. We will share experience between different initiatives, organizations, and programs, and explore how they can join forces, efficiently work together. The conference will showcase the benefits of cooperation in the frame of research and science in order to enhance regional prosperity and growth. Furthermore, the conference will demonstrate that science cooperation in the Baltic Sea region can serve both as a model for other European regions and as a bottom-up approach towards a European research area. I'm looking forward to lively discussions, interesting exchanges, and insightful talks. All the best from me, all the best from Hamburg, and enjoy the conference. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Figerbank, for this warm and optimistic words about the Baltic Sea Cooperation. Thanks a lot. You are a member of a regional science government, and our next speaker, which I will now bring on stage, is a member of a national government. So thanks a lot, Mrs. Figerbank. I'm now asking Mrs. Jurgita Zhukstinyenye to come on screen. She is a Minister of Education, Science and Sport of the Republic of Lithuania, and she also has a scientific background in social sciences and held a position as a rector of the University of Kaunas, I think, until 2018. So this is a perfect reference and profile to help us now understand the Baltic Science Network from a Lithuanian point of view. So Jurgita, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Mr. Markus Flaten. So yes, I was a rector interim for some period of time, but I served as a vice rector for education for quite a while. So dear Mrs. Katarina Figerbank, Director General, Mr. Grzegorz Poznański, partners and colleagues. I'm very happy to welcome you all at this final event of the Baltic Science Network. Today, we will have an excellent opportunity to hear main trends and challenges of the Baltic Sea cooperation, to discuss different cross-border research support initiatives within our region and in the new European research area. We also will overview the results and new vision of the future Baltic Science Network. I would like to emphasize 2 topics which in my view are highly relevant and critical, not only for Lithuania, but for the Baltic Sea region as well. That's researchers' career and widening policy aspects. On the topic of research careers, I think that we all agree that critical mass of talented researchers is a key for our progress. High-level research and innovations are created by talented people of the highest competence, which nowadays face a strong and increasing international competition. While creating the single knowledge and research market, the needs of young researchers have to be duly assessed and appropriately responded. Baltic Science Network has developed and piloted solutions for research mobility, which contribute to the vision of European research area and consequently will serve for improvement of conditions for researchers' career. The unique, I would say, Bari mobility program implemented under the Baltic Science Network for young researchers, which encourage master students to assist doctoral students in their research work, could become as a good practice example for national and European mobility programs. The COVID-19 pandemic disrupted the smooth implementation of the Bari program, unfortunately, but we can take it as a good start, and I think we should look for solutions to continue this measure. I also would like to invite the region to focus the attempts on the reducing the development gaps between the Baltic Sea region countries. Aiming for an inclusive European research area characterized by balanced brain circulation and are needed full involvement of talents and research capacities at macro-regional level and at the EU level. Baltic Science Network experience in organizing the Launchpad Research Infrastructure Connector to widen participation of research infrastructures demonstrates new possibilities and cooperation forms. Enabling conditions and better usage of international research infrastructure are essential for the emergence of new scientific knowledge and maturation of research-based innovation in the Baltic Sea region. We very much count on the exchange of experience with more experienced countries from the region to widening issue. The stronger and more united Baltic Sea region will become the easier we will tackle global crisis and will strengthen our competitiveness. I see the Baltic Sea region as the leader implementing European key objectives of the Green Deal, digitalization, other important and sensitive topics. The macro-regional cooperation under the format of the Baltic Sea Network could provide an undoubted added value by bringing together the stakeholders at all levels, raising and solving actual topics, important topics. Measures developed by the Baltic Science Network partners already proved their efficiency. Baltic Sea region should become a center of talents attraction. Thank you very much for organizing this conference. I would like to express my warmest wishes for the success of the event and all the best for the future of the Baltic science community. Thank you very much and have a nice day and very constructive discussion.
Thanks a lot, Jurgita Zhukshtinyenye, for these words. I took the point widening issue and research careers, and found it also interesting, the link between the general development and the science development. So thanks a lot for these ideas, Mrs. Zhukshtinyenye. Our third speaker is, I think, the third element of multilateral cooperation. We had a national and a regional government, and we now have a representative of an international organization. I'm talking about Grzegorz Poznański. He's the Director General of the Council of the Baltic Sea States, and he's based at its permanent international secretariat in Poland. He has a quite long career in multilateral diplomacy, especially in the Baltic, but also in the UN, in the office of the UN in Geneva. And all the projects of the Baltic Science Network have been realized in close cooperation with the CBSS. So I'm especially happy to have you here today, Mr. Poznański. And I will now give the word to you.
Thank you, Marcus. Just one correction: our secretariat is based in Stockholm. So hello from Stockholm.
Okay.
But thank you for having me here, and I wish to welcome all the partners of the Baltic Science Network and the participants of this conference and the Baltic Science Day. I'm very proud that the CBSS has important mandate to deal with scientific cooperation in the Baltic Sea region. In particular, I have to mention the CBSS Science and Research and Innovation Agenda, which was endorsed at the CBSS Science Ministerial in Krakow in 2016, as well as joint statement on science cooperation in the region, which was adopted in Riga in 2019. The overall goal is to promote the Baltic Sea region as a leading science, research, innovation area, both on European and global levels. There is no doubt that science and research cooperation contributes to the implementation of the CBSS three long-term priorities, namely building regional identity, safe and secure region, and building sustainable and prosperous region. It was proved at the recent CBSS ministerial meeting under the very able guidance of our current presidency, Lithuania. Science and research was included into newly adopted documents. First, Vilnius Declaration, which is a strategic vision for the Baltic Sea region by 2030, where specifically close cooperation in education, science, research, and innovation was mentioned, as well as newly adopted CBSS action plan, which defines as one of its actions, let me quote, promoting cooperation in science, innovation, academic mobility, especially of young researchers, by maintaining outcomes of the implemented scientific projects such as Baltic Science Network and Baltic Tram, and creation of the informal cooperation platform on science and research support for the annual, and as well as support for the annual Baltic Science Day and award for young scientists. I'm especially glad that the implementation of science research and innovation agenda has been based on two cornerstone projects, Baltic Science Network and Baltic Tram, Transnational Research Access in Macro Region. CBSS is really proud to be part of the Bsn and to belong to the project implementers team. The Baltic Science Network has become a leading transnational forum for higher education, science, and research cooperation in the Baltic Sea region. It is an important policy network gathering appropriate transnational, national, and regional policy actors from all around the Baltic Sea region. And it serves as a springboard for targeted multilateral activities in the frame of research and innovation excellence, mobility of scientists, as well as widened cooperation among various research and higher education centers across the Baltic Sea region. The academic mobilities is in focus of the CBSS Project Support Facility funded project, where the new concept BC, Baltic Sea Educational Academy, will be tested within the 3 schools of young scientists dedicated to the 3 topics: sustainable energy, digital growth, healthcare, biotechnologies. The first school will take place in September 2021. Initially, it was planned in Hamburg. Now it moved online as many of our activities during the pandemic. Today, the Baltic Science Network Vision 2030 for future of science and research cooperation in the Baltic Sea region is going to be presented as a way forward beyond the timeframe for implementation of the Baltic Science Network as a project. In this regard, I'm very glad to see that vision paper provides flexibility of additional topics to work with in the future, since the new needs and gaps may appear. We also see that the interdisciplinary topics such as green transition and sustainability are mentioned there. Jointly with Baltic Science Network in 2017 in St. Petersburg, the CBSS launched the Baltic Sea Science Day, now organized annually. In 2018, the Baltic Science Award was established to distinguish young, talented researchers in the region. Later today, the names of 3 winners of the award will be announced, and I will be happy to see you all at the ceremony. Allow me to end my statement with stating the obvious. Today, more than ever, taking into account the examples of fast technological and education development or challenges posed by pandemics, we need science-based policies and science-based solutions. For that, we need sound scientific collaboration in the Baltic Sea region and beyond. We need scientists and researchers' contribution so that we can live in safer and secure, as well as more sustainable and prosperous Baltic Sea region with distinctive regional identity, which builds collaboration and trust among states of the people. It is your role to help us in achieving those tasks. I wish you all successful event, fruitful discussion, and of course, continued cooperation towards a new era for research and innovation in the Baltic Sea region. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Poznansky, for this broad overview about the activities in the Baltic and the perspectives. Thanks a lot. Our next topic is the keynote, and the keynote speaker of today is a German journalist and documentary filmmaker called Tilman Büns, and he's also a book author, and he will talk about challenges and prospects of the Baltic Sea region. But you may ask, why do we choose a journalist as a speaker for a conference about science cooperation? Well, the reason is he's a very special and knowledgeable, and he has a quite holistic perspective on this region. He has been foreign correspondent from 2002 to 2008 for the biggest German TV network, which is the ARD. And he had been head of the Stockholm studio for Scandinavia and the Baltic states. And since 2008, he wrote several books dealing with the Nordic and Baltic Sea states and also the Netherlands. So I invite you to just take a step back from all these science policy and science cooperation issues and to look at the Baltic region through the eyes of a well-traveled journalist. So, Mr. Büns.
Yes, thank you very much.
Take us with you to the Baltic.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Flatten, you promised a view from outside the scientific society. Well, I'm part of the media system that you all have to cope with. We are interested what's interesting for the consumers, for the citizens, and we are very interested in what you do to solve the existing problems. The Corona time has shown that how much we are interested in science, and also how to repair former mistakes of scientists. Of course, there were. Let me begin with something very positive, and that is the sea eagle, the king of the birds. The good news is that they are back, at least where I part of the year live, in the Stockholm skerries. In the 60s, for many of you, very long time ago, but I was just born there about, they were going to be extinct. There were no sea eagles more in the Baltic Sea, at least not in the Stockholm region, as far as I know. And it was the time that a scientific invention, toxic stuff, a weed killer, it turned out to be a catastrophe. It was a global problem, but the solution came from the Baltic Sea. That's why I'm talking about it. Birds were virtually falling from the sky. It was because of DDT. That was the name of the product. Shortly said, I'm not the scientist, but you will certainly understand the short version of it, because you know much better about biology, chemistry than I am. It made the shell of the eggs too thin. So the young birds came out too early and they died. Science, one can say, corrected the mistakes of other scientists. That's progress to my eyes. The fishes in the Baltic Sea might not be so happy that the sea eagles are back again, because they are heavy eaters and excellent fishers. But as a nature lover and a sailor, I'm also happy that the seals are also back and doing quite well. Seals and sea eagles are a political story. They are our common concern. They should be. That's what makes the Baltic Sea so very special. It's a common concern, it's a common water, and it's shared responsibility. And as we all know, it's very vulnerable. It's relatively shallow, much less exchange than in a real ocean. And I know it can be tough if you're out at the Åland Islands or closer to Estonia, where the ferry Estonia sank, or the west side of the Curonian Spit in Lithuania. But very often it's a quiet place, less wind, no tides, very little salt. There you have to face and suffer from others' mistakes, and others have to face and suffer your mistakes. So on an informal level, at least, it has been, even in the coldest war, a minimum string of information and cooperation. There's a tendency to look at the Baltic as a test region for bigger developments. Digitalization is one example, but there are also others. 20 years ago, in a very cold winter, the Gulf between Finland and Estonia was frozen. Some months before, a tanker coming from Latvia, from Ventspils, made its way through the Baltic Sea and broke into pieces at the Spanish coast. The final destination was Singapore. The name was Prestige. It was a quite old ship, often inspected, but obviously too weak, and only one hull. One hull means 3 to 4 centimeters thick iron to protect the ship from the water and the water from the ship. Greenpeace has been warning, many scientists have been warning, all tankers should be double hull, because if one hull breaks, then the other hull will still be there. There will be more protection. I have prepared a little film, which is 20 years old, about this very cold winter. And now please, Niklas, Janke, start the first little film. It's called Traffic Jam in the Ice.
Weit draußen auf der Ostsee gibt es einen Stau der besonderen Art.
It's about a traffic jam in the Baltic Sea, as you can see. You can only watch it from the air. That's what we did. And down there, you see ships waiting for help because they're frozen in the ice. They have oil on board, but also wood. They're waiting for icebreakers from Russia, but the Russian icebreakers are booked out for weeks. This is the Sisu, the Finnish biggest icebreaker at that time. It's about 50 kilometers away from that position. And they're called for help because the little ships, the comparatively little ships, they don't have enough power to get out of the ice, but still they go out to the sea until they got stuck. We have been saving 400 ships in this season. I know I've been there for 33 years. Well, the ice is, as you can see, very thick, about 70 centimeters. Finland has protested against Russia at that time, that Russia sends ships without a proper ice shell on the trip. And there's things happening in this sort of traffic jam. Tank ships they collapse. Or they have a crash. And this you see now, how it works. Fortunately, nothing much really happened. So this is a boat accident, only the pipe got out of order, so that was not so bad. Everybody at that time was allowed to go through the Baltics. Single hull, double hull. Nobody really did anything against any law, so a new law had to come. Now they're talking about that they take the bigger rope from the Sisu to get out the Dutch ship.
Keine Frage, wir nehmen immer unseres. Sicher ist sicher, und so werden armdicke Stahltrossen rübergereicht zum holländischen Schiff, das mitgefangen war im Packeis. Die Mannschaft der Sisu hat heute hier...
It's a bit strange to see these pictures in the summer now, but...
Aber so ganz wohl ist ihnen nicht bei ihrem Geschäft.
You know what we have to avoid by all means is an oil catastrophe in the Baltic Sea. We need stronger regulations and stronger ships. It's our common Baltic Sea.
Dann nimmt die Sisu das eine Schiff an den Haken, die anderen Schiffe bleiben zurück. Und mit ihnen das unbehagliche Gefühl, dass es für fast alles eine Lösung gibt.
There must be a solution even for the Baltics. That was the last sentence of this report, which was sent out in German television about 20 years ago. And the second good news, there was a cooperation with scientific backing, environmentalist action, good governance, working hand in hand, and it made the Baltic Sea a better place to be. And it started an innovation program for tankers, because soon later, it was forbidden to go with single-hull tankers into the Baltic Sea. European Union was the front organization to do that. And since then, fortunately, no serious accidents have happened in the Baltics. The most amazing thing for the Baltic Sea region, to my idea, is that there are new champions in only one generation. Just think of Finland and Nokia. Everybody knows the story, and the first steps to a digital society. Actually, it was born out of necessity. Finland suffered 1989, 1990 from a collapse of the Soviet Union and the Soviet market, and they had unemployment rates of over 20%. And the new ideas, mobile phone and so on, came from scientists. And we know all what later happened to Nokia some years later when they missed one step. But then there was the other champion on the other side of the Baltic Sea already waiting. Everybody knows this example of innovation. Maybe you have heard it a bit too much. Estonia and so. Estonians are excellent in marketing their own country. Most advanced digital society in the world and so on. But did you know that in 1989, there was only one mobile phone in the whole country hidden in the garden of the foreign ministry? And now, please, Niklas Janke, start the second little film. It's about a digital island where you wouldn't expect it, really at the end of the world. But it looks like a place where we all want to go on holiday to now. It's called Keynote. It's a bit like Bullabü, all those who like Astrid Lindgren's books and films. But in reality, it's sort of the village of tomorrow. And I promise you, the internet is faster than in Hamburg. A little word about the geographical position. Well, as you can see, Baltic Sea, the three countries, Russia on the side. And then on this very little remote island of Keynote with about 432 inhabitants, you find old and new combined in an interesting combination. This woman, Mare Metas, she's the head of the Cultural Association of Keynote, and she has an old motorcycle, a Dnieper. Some of you might look at it and think, oh, this looks a bit like a BMW. And it's sort of a replica, and Dnieper still produces them, which is very good. Smells a bit, this motorcycle. You all still smell it when it's gone. Mare Metas is on the way to the school, and she's busy.
Always problematical if you're driving, then you never know. It's just we were talking about it.
It's not reliable, this motorcycle, but it's a very, very good tourist magnet. People come to see these motorcycles. So that's also part of Estonian.
Yeah, use a sidecar and usually a wooden sidecar. You can put also things inside there, and you can transport children and whole family.
So today it's a reading lesson in the school, 35 kids in 3 classes. It starts very harmless. First hour is Estonian, fairy tale about the fox. And the daughter of Mare, Ani, she reads, and she reads without any mistake. As usual, one might say. But to get her note, her mark, she has to wait a bit, and you knows that. Because first of all, the teacher feeds the computer. And a couple of kilometers away at home, Mother Mare looks to the sheep, but the mobile makes pling.
Check fairy tale. Mark is 5.
The mark is 5. Well, 5 is the best in Estonia, obviously. And Annie is also happy. She's still in the age where you are not, you find it very good that mother knows everything. No, it doesn't disturb me. I'm only angry if I don't get it very good. While the children are at school,
and you never know that if the child is at school or not, or missing, or what kind of marks he gets. And now we know every day, and also announcement that teachers are sending, and you get all the time quickly information.
Estonia has got quite a loss in population since '89. So it's very important to keep people in the countryside, even on remote islands, and develop new ideas. And what she's doing is she has to do something because the old fishing factory is out of order, and the shows is also not working anymore. But it's the motorcycles I already mentioned, and they work well. And Mara is very realistic about that. It's their old costumes that make a difference, and it's the motorcycles. The women are experts in getting money from the European Commission. And they are opening up a cafe for all the tourists with support from Brussels. And at the place where maybe many years ago, Lenin was at the wall, hanging there, you now see Mr. Juncker as a thank you. Now it should, of course, be von der Leyen, but that's a 2 years old film. And she tells us something that maybe the EU could learn from Estonia.
It is very easy in Estonia. It's really easy.
Mara talks about that it takes 5 minutes to start a cafe bureaucratically.
Maybe 3 minutes.
Or maybe 3 minutes. So don't trust your eyes. It looks not like high tech, but it has digitally, it's ahead of others. And internet has been a basic human right since 20 years, and others could not even spell the name at that time. If you think now, this is a little bit too pro-Estonia and too pro-other countries, I think the most interesting news I read in the last 10, 15 months was that Poland is hoping to be on the same level when it comes to the national product as Italy in about 10 years. And the experts said that it's very likely that Poland will be so far ahead because it's so far in high standard, in speed, digital solutions, and robots. I've been there in 1981 with my bicycle, and I remember how we went through unpaved roads and everything, and the very bad situation on the food market, everybody knows, which led later on also to the strikes in Danzig. And now it's an incredible story. And you probably have heard that our Minister of Economy at the Hannover Messe, Altmaier, he said, if we, Germany, doesn't make it with the digital innovation, we should let a team from Estonia fly in to help us. One interesting other aspect is what one can learn from Baltic Sea regions is a German sociologist, Ulrich Beck. He wrote a book some 25 years ago. It's called The Risk Society. In the Risk Society, you're a master if you're the first one to name a risk, to discover a risk. All environmental problems are in that sense seen a risk. If you are able to present a solution relatively quickly, and the third one, to have a new product that is highly wanted. That sounds a little bit theoretical, but one good example is how the Estonians countered the cyber war in 2007. I was there as a journalist at that time, and it was a little bit unpleasant situation. The lifts didn't go, the emergency lines didn't go. 150 servers from all over the world shooted mails to little Estonia, and Estonia's banks didn't work and so on. But nowadays, if you come to Tallinn now, it's not only because of the certainly very beautiful city, but it's because of the way that they present themselves as problem solvers. Everybody wants to go there and know what do you do with the new risk of digital society? What can we learn from that? So that's a good example of what a relatively small region with a lot of good brain can do to gain income and do something for the safety of the world. Now I have to admit that I'm a bit faster than the program, but the program started also a little bit earlier because you're also disciplined and so quick. When we talk about challenges, I have a few comments to make as a journalist and newspaper reader and traveler. The one is, I think the colleague from Lithuania said that, no, the lady from Lithuania, the director of the University of Kaunas, I'm very sorry that I don't really pronounce her name rightly, but she said, you need money to get good scientists. And in general, I think a problem of the Baltic countries is that you should maybe open up your borders a little bit more to fight against this trend of young people leaving the country for better opportunities, better money, better chance. I was there, I wrote a book about the Baltics just 2 years ago, and at that time, 100 people left Lithuania a day. And everybody knows the ciphers. I think that's a difficult problem. And at that time, as a German visitor, I said, what about refugees? We have 500,000 refugees. Well, it's difficult to integrate them and so on and so on. I think that's something probably to think over and to change, to open your borders more to those who come if you are in an aging society. The second thing is a little bit more tricky. Estonia is very proud of fighting the cyber crime, but if you follow the newspapers closely, you will find out that the Baltic Sea has had many names in the past. One of the names was the Mare vodka, that is about 100 years ago when vodka was coming over the Baltic Sea to Finland, where there was prohibition for some 15 years, and to Sweden, which was very highly regulated. A lot of money was made, very illegal, very criminal. Nowadays, it looks as we have a very well-controlled sea. Things are getting better. There are some problems I will talk a bit later about. But the fact is that this beautiful little ocean has been the place of the biggest money laundering in modern times when it comes to Europe. $250 billion went through the Danish bank in Tallinn with the help of Deutsche Bank and went into the circuit, and it was black money from some quite well-known sources. So I think if you want to keep the Baltic Sea safe in that way, maybe some of the scientific interests should also go, maybe that's more for finance people, into this field. And then I have a very classical item. I have a Swedish godchild, and his wife, they're pregnant. His wife is pregnant, they're expecting their first baby, and they read in the official news a notice of Livsmedelsverket, of the health organization, the state health organization now in May 2021. Can you eat, the question is, can you eat fish from the Baltic Sea and also from the two bigger lakes of Sweden, Vänern and Vättern? And then it says, children and grown-ups, nursing mothers, pregnant women, and those who want to become pregnant in the future should not eat fish more often than 2 to 3 times a year. If you ask me, that's a scientific major problem for the consumer and the citizen. And it's also, of course, of the sins of the past, dioxins and PCBs and so on. And the second thing that I'm very alarmed of, that about 20% of the soil of the bottom of the Baltic Sea belongs to the so-called death zones. There's no real life because there's no oxygen. That's very, very, very sad. Final conclusion, there's a common little ocean there are challenges enough, and there's a feeling of commonness, of which this conference shows a very good example. And that should make cooperation both easier and more urgent. And thank you for your attention. That was my speech.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Bruns, for this broad overview again, and for, I think, for stories that we would not normally have linked with the issue of science, but that all are related with science, or at least with the Baltic Sea Cooperation in different ways. We now have a very special and unusual challenge. We are ahead of schedule, as you already noticed. So we planned to start the panel discussion at 10:30, and right now there are some panelists of this discussion not yet in the conference, because they were intended to come here at 10:30. So I suggest that we use this situation to open up the question and answers tools, which I wanted to do later on. We still have on the panel Mr. Bruns, and we have Mr. Poznansky. Mr. Poznansky, are you still present, and could you be here for questions and for answering? Mr. Poznansky, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here.
That's great. So I would just suggest that we use the so-called question and answers tool, which is below the screen of all the attendees of this conference, and you can put questions there. So there is a first question of Jörg Knieling, and the people you can address questions to for maybe 10 or maybe 15 minutes are Mr. Poznansky, Mr. Bruns, and I don't know if Mr. Klaus van Lepel already wants to join the discussion. He's from the Hamburg Ministry of Science, or whether you want to join us later on. Mr. van Lepel? So,
yes, I can join you. No problem.
Okay.
Welcome.
So this is just a kind of spontaneous intervention to bridge the time until we have the panel complete. And so I will just read the questions that are in the answer to, and I really invite everybody watching and listening in this conference to put their questions in that question and answers tool below. So Jörg Knieling asked, regarding Estonia, what are the success factors of the impressive digitalization that Mr. Bruns had been talking about? Can you answer this, Mr. Bruns?
One of the reasons was probably that my generation, which was in charge in Estonia at that time, was completely sent to the away. There was a new start, was a completely new generation. Mart Laar, the Prime Minister of Estonia, was 32. There was this very interesting documentary film, it's called Rodeo, about these first years in Estonia. You wouldn't believe it. It's really much better than any Netflix crime series. Everything happened. And these young people had an agenda. It was a rather neoliberal agenda. And the chief attorney was 27. And so it was a bunch of people very young, and he said, if you do everything if you're young, because you don't know the mistakes you can make. And that's a very inspiring feeling. When Mart Laar was 32 and elected prime minister, he went to a conference for economy and for safety, the Helsinki conference, so to speak. And it was in Vienna, and he was not let in because the security people didn't think that he looked like a prime minister. And actually Mart Laar, he has a little higher voice and he's very well understood. So he said, but I am the prime minister of Estonia. And then he and his two colleagues, they stood there and they were not let in. And then Carl Bildt, the former foreign minister of Sweden, knew them. And he told the security guys, come on, him and the two other guys, that's the finance minister and that's two other ministers, and they are okay, you can let them in. And I think this spirit of the young ones have a chance and they can invent it from scratch. They have some enemies in the world. They have no debts. Finland, for example, if it's true what Matlas, they offered them their old net for telecommunication. And the Estonian answer probably was, thank you very much, we don't want it, even if it's a present. We'd rather start something new. And then, last word, I'm saying, it's such a big country comparably, and very, very few people living there, about 1 million, some more. So you can't do it like in Finland or Germany and have a tight infrastructure. You have to go to have a digital way. You can't have a bank in every little village.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Burns. So we have one new speaker on the screen now, Mr. Smirnov from Russia. So I'm very glad to see you here. Hello, Mr. Smirnov. Mr. Smirnov is from the Russian Ministry of Science, or he is representative of the Russian Ministry of Science. So I'm very happy to have you here as the most eastern part, I think, of this this conference. And I also want to rightly present Klaus von Lepel again. He's the head of the unit Research Policy, Research Funding and Innovation, Transfer, Europe and International Affairs at the Hamburg Ministry of Science, and his dedication to the Baltic Sea is also a little bit longer. I think since 2011, I read this was when Germany had the presidency of the German Baltic Sea Council in 2011, and this was a time when you have been sent to Berlin. I suppose maybe this had been the start of your dedication to this region as well. So welcome, Klaus von Lepel.
Not really, actually. The dedication started with my birth, because my mother is from Finland.
Oh, so this much before. But this is the first point where in your biography, in your curriculum vitae, this was quite visible that you have a special relation to that region. So we are still waiting for Signe Razzo to be on the panel. So I will just read another question that came from the audience, from Tom Schumacher.
Maybe I can also comment on this Estonian question. I think one reason why Estonia is so far ahead in digitalization is that Estonian research policy and the Estonian policy has concentrated on one topic. Focus is very much important. If you are a small country, you can't deliver in all fields of science and in all fields of politics. You have to concentrate. And they have been taking this political decision to concentrate on digitalization and to put all their efforts in this field. And this is also, I guess, one of the reasons why are they so successful in this field.
Thank you. So the next question of Tom Schumacher is, what are right now the biggest challenges for developing Baltic Sea cooperation? It's a very broad question. I think everyone maybe on the panel could share some thoughts about this. What are the biggest challenges for developing the Baltic Sea cooperation?
Markus, if I may.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, just one word about Estonia. I agree very much with Klaus that in Estonia, the clear vision and focus the development based on science and technology. It was a very elaborate and wise decision for the small state strategies. I'm saying that as I served in Estonia as ambassador for 4 years, and I was really overwhelmed. And we must say that in Estonia there was always focus on science and technological development. It was before the Second World War. It was also during the Soviet Union. So there was a clear modern vision with a good, I would say, scientific basis. So that's, you know, to end the Estonia's topic. Now moving briefly to the Baltic science challenges. I think that we have two main challenges. I mean, let me say what is going well. I mean, first of all, we have really good infrastructure of collaboration. We have international institutions, we have EU strategy, we have specialized institutions like HELCOM. So we have pretty good infrastructure to further develop this cooperation in the region, and that's on the positive side. More importantly, we are quite good in developing visions. And right now, I think that every organization, every collaborative effort, and actually Baltic Science Network is not an exception in this sense, are developing a realistic but ambitious visions how the region should look in different domains in 2030 and even beyond. We have also a very good push from below, and we have very active civil society, we have very active stakeholders on the ground, local communities, sub-regional collaborations, and also very active youth. So I put it on the asset side of our Baltic collaboration. I would see two main challenges. One that I'm not going to discuss and develop further, but this is general geopolitical situation, and it has a lot to do with the trust. I could say that our organization is mainly focusing on building trust between all the CBSS member states all around the Baltic Sea region, and this is I would say the main challenge today, and I hope that we will be successful. And the second one is I mentioned the very good, very far-looking and realistic and ambitious visions. The challenge today is how we will operationalize, make them operational, how we will implement those visions. And there is one issue really key to the implementation, is that even when we have our CBSS vision, Baltic Science Network, HELCOM will adopt its action plan, we will all have to do it in a collaborative effort. We have to be all mutually reinforcing. I mean, when I look at the CBSS action plan, I see the role for practically all other organizations in the region to support that. And when I look at the others plans, be it HELCOM or Baltic Science Network or the others, we will need to do it together and we'll need to support each other. So pointing out that the challenge, collaboration, is the answer to this challenge.
Thank you, Mr. Poznański. Anyone else wants to comment on the challenges question? If not, then I would just take the next question. Gabor Schneider wrote, thank you for the inspiring keynotes. If you would formulate a vision that BSR will achieve until 2050 with the help of science, what would that be? He's from the Swedish Institute. I think this is the last question we will take right now, because I think the panel is complete now. But who dares just to formulate a vision for this big region until 2050? It's quite a big question, I know. But any suggestions? Mr. von Lepel.
Maybe I can start, and then the others can add some aspects. I think our vision for 2050 would be that the Baltic Sea is climate neutral, the first region, climate neutral region, and it will be the powerhouse for scientific excellence and for scientific innovation for the whole European research area. Because we are already a model region, and if we join our forces in this field, we will come up to the top of European research development from my point of view, and we are able to offer solutions, I think, in a couple of essential questions for the people we have in the region, in the field of life science, in the field of climate change, in the field of digitalization, in the field of environmental protection. You can see that the Baltic Sea is already ahead in this field. And if we join our forces in this field, we can even develop solutions which could serve as role models for Europe or even for the rest of the world.
Thanks, Mr. Figerbank.
Maybe Tilman or Josh can add some other aspects.
Yes.
Well, I think that sounds very promising, and I have very little to add. I sometimes think that there's also a new field that's very interesting, and that's going to split some of the allies, and that's so-called green-green conflicts. We're going to see a lot more. If you say climate neutrality, that's probably everybody signs that. Even Vattenfall promises that in a whole generation. But the truth is that we don't have so much space. If you see the developments in northern Sweden and Lapland, windmills and windmills and windmills, and the last unspoiled places in the world are being used to create energy for our new motor bicycles. There are going to be problems, and I don't see that this is really has been yet adapted as a political field. If you see the Swedish government, they say, we want to be the first fossil-free welfare state in the world. Okay, go ahead. What about the Sami people in the north? And I'm just pointing a little finger on that, because there's going to be more conflicts, and we have to find clever solutions for that, for protected areas and so on, to also save the beauty of our nature. I mean,
okay, but in general, you agree to the vision that Klaus von Lippel said, that the Baltic Sea region could be the first climate neutral region. So I see Signe Razzo now on screen. Well, welcome, Mrs. Razzo. Great to have you here. Just as an explanation for everyone, this is the strange moment where we had been ahead of schedule. So we just filled the gap with a short discussion with our keynote speakers and two other speakers that had been there. But now that you are there, I will now ask Mr. Poznański whether he wants to add his vision right now, or some thoughts to the vision, and then we would close this topic and move over to the panel discussion.
I am partly in an easy position because we have just adopted our Vilnius Declaration, and where we have sketched the vision of the Baltic Sea region by 2030. And I think that when we think about 2050, climate neutrality was already mentioned. I think that we shouldn't have really two big problems. I mean, I expect rather that, especially by 2050, we will have the overall consensus among all the countries around the Baltic Sea, how we should do in this regard. I've already said in my statement that the Baltic Science Cooperation is really a key to achieve all our strategic visions and objectives. And when we talk about digitalization, but also the social science, I look at it because we really need to develop, and Baltic Sea region can be really a forerunner for creating new work-life models. Just like this presentation on Kihnu, where people live in this fantastic tiny island in Estonia, being connected to the world, being connected to the other, and being able to fulfill their dreams, their ambitions. That's the model we will need to build. And we, as a Baltic Sea region, we can be really a forerunner to creating such models. Let's say sustainable work-life projects. But of course, environment is the place where we need to focus, and we really need to think about the future. I think this is pretty clear that our future will depend more and more, for example, on space research, research of Earth from space, space exploration. That's one of the areas where I think that the collaboration could forward. Of course, we have many other venues. European partners have European Space Agency, but also looking into the possibilities of the collaboration between European Space Agency and European space research in general, and Russia. I think that there are many areas that we can think about furthering collaboration in order to be really in the frontrunners in Europe, but more importantly in the world. I mean, we are living in a globalized world. We have to look what the others are doing, how China, India, Brazil, the others are advancing, and we have to think even faster, even more forward-looking. So my vision is, and it is kind of confirmed by the recent Vilnius Declaration, that we want to be one of the best developed, one of the most sustainable region in the world, but sustainable in the broad sense of meaning. So developing in a sustainable way, also based on the scientific based solutions, and having a good social model. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Poznański. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to as well as you, as also to Tilman Büns, our keynote speaker, for his inspiring and interesting keynote. And we now switch to the panel. So I ask all the panelists, which is Mrs. Ratsu, who is she's already here. Mrs. Ratsu, you can leave your camera open. And Mrs. Vokaskova, I will present you then, and Mr. Smirnov. Okay, and Mr. Andrusitis, to switch the camera on. And yeah, that's it. Thanks a lot. So the topic of our panel discussion is a new era. So this is the play with words of era. Oh, Mrs. Paulsen, excuse me, I saw you before and I forgot to name you right now. So I will just present all of you in a minute. So the topic of our panel discussion today is new era for research and innovation in the Baltic Sea region. And so it's the question, how can these different initiatives and funding programs also be better aligned to fully exploiting the potential of this region, and how can this region be a role model for the era? Once again, you already used, this is to the audience, you already used this Q&A tool below the screen. You can start to put questions there already, and we will answer them after the discussion. So I will now present the panel to you, and then we will make a short round with short statements of everyone, then enter into a discussion. And after that, we want to open the discussion to the audience so everyone can put questions to the speakers here on the panel. So who's on our panel? The first one is Signe Ratzo. She is a Deputy Director General at the European Commission's DG for Research and Innovation. And something maybe worth mentioning is she's from Estonia. So she has a close connection to the Baltic Sea regions. Hello, Mrs. Ratzo, great to have you here.
Good morning.
Good morning. The second speaker was planned to be Peter Berkowitz, who is also from the European Commission, from the DG Regio, or the in complete words, DG of Regional and Urban Policy. Unfortunately, there had been a change in time schedule and he couldn't be there, but he sent Ms. Jitka Vakoskova instead. So hello, Mrs. Vokaskova.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Great that you could come and join us here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Then we have Andris Andrusitis. He is the acting executive director of the Baltic and North Sea Coordination and Support Action, or shortly called BANOS. So he's a representative of a macro-regional funding program of the EU. I think more or less the only macro-regional funding program of the EU, if I see that right.
Right. Thank you very much for inviting, and good morning. Very good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Andrusitis. Thanks a lot. Then Kajsa Paulsson. She is from Sweden, from Lund University, and she represents a group we are all talking about here, but that is naturally not as much represented as maybe the other groups. She is a scientist, so she is really the one who does this hard work of finding new knowledge through experiments and research. So she is a scientist at the Division of Clinical Genetics at Lund University in Sweden, but she has kind of two hats today, because she is also a program manager of the Hanseatic League of Science, or shortly HALOS, at Lund University in Sweden. So welcome, Mrs. Paulsson.
Thank you, Marcus. And I just want to say that we are actually two Kajsa Paulssons at Lund University at the Faculty of Medicine. One is at the clinical genetics, but that is not me. I am at experimental medical science. It doesn't really matter. We are in the same building and we have type of similar profile, so it's okay to mix us up sometimes.
That makes research a bit difficult for me when if two persons with the same name are so close together. So
completely understandable.
Okay. So the last panelist today is Viktor Smirnov. I already mentioned this, but he's a deputy director of the International Department at the Ministry of Science and Higher Education of the Russian Federation. So I'm glad to have you here today, Mr. Smirnov. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
As I told you, I want to organize this panel discussion in, let's say, 3 steps. The first is something like the assets and the chances of the region. The second would be the limitations or challenges of the region. And as you already may have guessed, the third then would be the strategies to overcome these limitations and challenges, or that the ideas to get into a good future for the region. So I would like to start with Signe Ratso. Is it Signe or Signe?
It's, well, in Estonian it's Signe. Just
Signe. Okay, so I will just say
it's a Scandinavian name, so whatever.
Signe Ratso. I saw in your CV that you spent part of your career with economic issues and also trade-related issues, and I think competition is a quite important issue in the economic sphere, also in the scientific sphere, but very much in the economy, where it's also a driving factor. And if you look at the Baltic Sea region from the point of global competition, when you see it has to compete not only within the region, but with other regions, science regions in Europe, and of course also in the world, what do you think are the major assets or the major factors to compete with others, its strength, basically?
Well, many thanks for the question, and many thanks for the invitation to this conference. It's a great pleasure to attend this conference and this discussion. As you mentioned, I come from the region, so that's why it's particularly a pleasure to participate in this discussion. And now, looking back, before I joined the European Commission in 2006, I worked as Deputy Under-Secretary of the Ministry of Economic Affairs in Estonia. And then at that time, we really used a lot the Baltic Sea region as a regional concept, in order to attract the investors trade, well, basically promote trade and investment ties, because it's always better to be part of a bigger region than just a tiny country as Estonia is. And certainly I think the strengths are also, if you can, by research and innovation, you can really put together the investments in research and innovation, Well, certainly our research and innovation program, Horizon Europe, is actually, which makes us stronger because it is globally the biggest regional program, which is now foreseen to be nearly 100 billion euros for the next 7 years. And actually, we also intend to associate around 20 countries to this program, who also well, basically put their money in this big pot, and then they can participate on the same basis as the European participants. But now, if we look at this, the Baltic Sea region, I can say that it is a great example of highly innovative and also well interlinked ecosystem. Just to give some concrete examples, the Baltics are at the forefront of innovative fintechs, thanks to many factors, including the early adoption of digital technology, a culture for startups and innovation, and also growing cross-border cooperation, because that's what we are speaking here about. Then SMEs from Baltic countries have more collaborations with competitors or other enterprises from the same sector than the EU average. And also Baltic countries are among the top markets for online alternative financing in the EU. These were examples from the Baltic countries where we still clearly need to compete also with our neighbors in the north, because we know that if we take Finland and Sweden, these are the countries which are among those who really invest heavily in research and innovation. But as said, via the collaboration, cooperation, we are much stronger together. And this excellent performance can clearly also benefit from the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea region, which provides a solid, comprehensive basis for macro-regional cooperation. That's what we are speaking now about. And in line with these overall EU priorities objectives for the next years, the latest action plan of the strategy coming from February this year aims to boost even further transnational cooperation towards a more efficient recovery. And this will strive for green and digital transition. And this actually gives competitive advantage. So if you can be really a front runner in green and digital, then also you will be economically more competitive. And certainly these objectives contribute to the achievement of European Green Deal climate neutral objectives and aligning policies with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Now, all this mirrors perfectly our endeavors and ambitions in the renewed European research area and new Horizon Europe program. Because both stand for a better coordination, cooperation between the countries and regions. And they address our common challenges to improve our research innovation systems, enhance our research and development capacities, and bridge still existing innovation divides. Now, I already mentioned the size of Horizon Europe program. But also, while this just a few other highlights is that Horizon Europe missions and European partnerships are these where we also expect synergetic effects, both across policy areas and cross governance levels. And I hope that a bit later I also
that's also part of
highlight the new era.
That will be part of the, let's say, part of the solution already. So thanks a lot, Signarasu. Mrs. Łukaskova, you are, as well as Peter Berkowitz, part of the DG Regio. So I think you must have a broad overview about regional initiatives in the European Union. And the Baltic Science Network sees itself as a model for macro-regional cooperation. The first question is, do you agree with that? And then the second, what could the network do to take more advantage of this role, of this model role as macroeconomic cooperation?
Good morning again. Thank you very much for having the opportunity to talk to you. I think that the Baltic Science Network, to reply to your first question, is really one of the very good examples that we have of cooperation in research and innovation. It was mentioned here today already several times, the importance of cooperation. In the previous panel, it was mentioned by Mrs. Razzo. I think everyone agrees. And for us, this is really one of the building blocks of the support. You know very well that for the cohesion policy, investments in research and innovation are one of the top priority. And we are investing really enormous amounts of money to develop research and innovation infrastructures, but also to boost collaboration between research actors and business sector, to be able not only to have excellent research results, but also to bring new products and services to the market. This is really the focus of our policy. We are not focusing on excellence. This is where we have Horizon Europe program. And this is why the two policies interact so well with each other. We basically would like to take over what Horizon Europe does and bring it a step forward to the customers and to the citizens. For us, of course, the key is to focus the investments, because although we have quite big amounts of money to invest, we really would like to spend them in the most promising areas. So you know very well that the research and innovation investments are conditioned by the development of the smart specialization strategies, which have really the primary focus of finding areas where countries and regions can really develop their potential in the best manner possible. And collaboration in the smart specialization areas is something that we were promoting already in the past programming period, but which will have even more importance in the upcoming 21-27 programming period, where we have put interregional cooperation as one of the conditions, one of the criteria for the smart specialization strategies, really with a view to support collaboration and cooperation and all the discussions as much as possible, because we see that this is the key. We need to break the silos between the actors, between researchers, business sector, between regions, between countries, because we think that if we really merge our strengths, start talking, we have much better opportunity to address all the challenges. And you know, they were mentioned here several times. We have the European Green Deal. We have massive task to really advance with digital transformation of our economies. So this is something which you know, networks like yours really can play a key role in achieving.
So the answer, more or less, what can the network do is to keep on this track of cooperation and to use the instruments that are provided by the European Union. Thanks a lot. So next on panel is Andrusitis. I think you, as a head of BANOS, know very well how to operate in this field of Europe and different levels of funding organizations on one side, and institutions in the place, in the region on the other side. And so according to this experience, that is an experience of several years now, what do you think are the limiting factors when Europe comes to the regions?
Right, thank you very much. I would like, first of all, I would like to thank the previous speakers. I was really excited about the keynote speech by Mr. Tilman Bunce. Because I am Latvian by nationality, and I'm a marine researcher by education, and I've been now working with these international programs, and in particular with the BONUS program, the Baltic Sea Research and Development Program, for quite many years. And before I go to precisely to the answer to your question, I would also like to reflect in a couple of words in your previous question to other panelists about the opportunities and the strength of the Baltic Sea region. And I would, in just few words, I would add to all the very important keywords which were mentioned already. I would like to add as a strength of our region is in general peaceful. You know, I'm working very much with other marine sea basin regions around the Europe, and the geopolitical situation is different there. Secondly, we here in the Baltic Sea region, we are, and this is again something which was said already this morning, we are a problem solvers. And we have been cooperating for solving the problems for quite a long time. So we have this history of cooperation in solving addressing the challenges. Yes, there are challenges. We know many of them, and new challenges might come, but we also know how to cooperate to solve those challenges. And there was a lot of talking already about the Baltic Sea region as a model. And yes, indeed, we are very strong in science, very strong in the overall level of education. I would like to add one more thing to this. Certainly, the Baltic Sea region is one of the forerunners, maybe on a global scale, in what is called this bridging of science and policy, or maybe more precisely to say the developing of a scientific evidence-based policy making. This is really where the Baltic Sea is I think, leading and pioneering. We cannot say that this is a smooth road, and we cannot say that we don't have any challenges in this, but things are happening, and development is pretty fast. As a now a director of the oldest, as you said, oldest transnational macro-regional research program here, the Baltic Sea Research and Development Program, BONUS, I can say that yes, once again, we managed, actually, we were pioneers, and this is difficult to be the icebreakers and trailblazers. We have managed to develop what is mentioned by sometimes by Helsinki Commission, a unique tandem of research and policy. I'm repeating myself here, and I think this is a big achievement. And what is if we go to challenges, but I believe, Marcus, that you will have a round and we will discuss the challenges. Well, I see, and this is a bit of a reflection of the Horizon Europe, the huge, massive, new, very much renovated Horizon Europe is actually, technically it has started, but there has been a bit of delays and real activities. We're just looking forward to see the real activities. I think and all eyes of scientists and research policy makers, of course, are on the Horizon Europe now. And it is important to maintain this regional integrity, regional identity, because it's not so easy always. There are voices, and there are strong kind of thinking towards leveling the field, and of course we have other regions in the European Union, and this is important to play in this game in a proper way. Yeah, that would be my very quick reflection.
Thanks a lot, Andres. It's true that I would put up this issue of limitations later on again after this round. So Kaisa Paulsson, you do publish quite a lot of scientific papers a year, and you're also manager of Halos. Could you just briefly explain to us what HELOS does and how it is related to the Baltic Science Network? It's not really a member, but it's connected. Could you explain how that works?
I would be delighted to. But first of all, thank you for inviting me. This is a great opportunity to listen to very interesting talks and discussions. And I must say that I have taken great joy also in participating in other events organized by the Baltic Science Network. It has been really, really fruitful for me. But I will come back to that. So HELOS, Hanseatic League of Science, is also an EU interregional project, but it's funded by the Öresund, Kattegatt, Skagerrak region. And it's a follow-up project, one can say. We had a predecessor project that was the largest in the Öresund, Kattegatt, Skagerrak region ever. It was called ESS and Max 4, Cross-Border Science and Society. And within that project, there were several work packages. There was one work package for the researchers, so to say. And we did within that project not less than 194 cross-border projects where we took advantage of the resources within the partner geography of that project. And inspired by that project, we went on and developed further into a new project, and that is HELOS. Mm-hmm. And we, for HELOS, decided to focus on the life science sector. And why we did that? Well, we thought actually in the predecessor project that many of these sponsor packages for half-year-long research projects would be low-hanging fruits for other sectors because the projects were supposed to utilize either synchrotron light and or neutrons. And those we get from the large-scale research infrastructures, and the life science sector are not the major users of all the techniques available there. So we thought others would probably pick those projects. But it was actually 50% of the projects that were from the life science sector. So that was a strong incitament for us to do a focused project for the life science sector. And we also developed it further by having a stronger requirement of involving industry one way or the other in the projects. So HELOS is again then about research projects taking advantage in cross-border constellations of our great assets in terms of research infrastructures. Mm-hmm. And we focus on the research infrastructures that are synchrotron light sources, neutron sources, or provide electrons. So we have a focus, but we also engage in questions regarding the ecosystem around these large-scale facilities. There is a lot of sample preparation. There is a lot of actually bottlenecks when you have been at these facilities and you need to analyze your data, you need to transfer your data, and that can take several years sometimes. So there is a lot of issues that we need to address and we can work together with. Yeah, I also want to mention that importantly, we also have a work package for regional development. And that is, again, a concept that is stolen from the predecessor project. We found it enormously fruitful to not only be scientists working with these questions, but to work together with the regional development actors. So in HELOS, we are also now working with tech transfer, mobility, and trying to get to the point where we have a number of bilateral and multilateral agreements between partner organizations and different stakeholders. So that was a little bit about HELOS and the connection to Baltic Science Network. Well, there is actually a lot of overlap. And you know Baltic Science Network, and you have heard a little bit about HELOS. And we could have ended up maybe being almost competitors in the ecosystem. But instead, thanks to the people and the attitude, I think, there has instead been a lot of attempts and success regarding synchronization of activities and joint activities, workshops where we have contributed from the two different interregional EU projects, creating a critical mass and making processes and discussions much more fruitful. So I think Baltic Science Network has been a fantastic platform and arena for discussions of high relevance also for HALOS.
So I think maybe the questions to the assets for scientists can be answered with the existence of something like a Baltic Science Network itself, and the availability of large-scale infrastructure, as you told, and the availability of programs that help to share this infrastructure.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. So, Mr. Smirnov, you are working for the Russian Ministry of Science, and I put the same question to you regarding the assets from a Russian point of view. What could you explain us the relevance of the Baltic Science region for you, and what you consider are the assets of this region? I mean, you are part of a huge scientific area, which is the Russian Federation, but you also are linked to this Baltic Sea region. So could you explain this to us?
Yeah, thank you, Marcus. Good morning to everyone. That's correct. I'm sort of bureaucrat. I'm not a scientist. But you know, if we bureaucrats do not do anything, I like to say all the time, the scientists would cooperate anyway. And our task from the bureaucratic part to help our scientists to cooperate and to make their life easier, more comfortable, and more effective. And that's why me in the ministry, I'm being involved. If you look at my white hair, you can understand that I've been working for quite a long time in that area. And also, I would like to mention that Russia is surrounded by the oceans. Well, I can tell you a very short joke. I had been in one country, I would not give the name, and the gentleman asked me where I'm from. I said, I'm from Russia. He had been a little surprised and saying, where is that? I said, look, do you know where on the map Germany and France are located? He said, yes, I know. I said, well, if you look at the map and you'll see France, and then you will see Germany, and then a little bit to the right, and it will be Russia, and up to the Pacific Ocean. So he had been quite surprised. And so I mean to say that we are surrounded by the oceans, and the Pacific Ocean and the Northern Ocean and so on. And we pay quite a I would say strong attention to the Baltic Sea and the Baltic cooperation. We are like neighbors sitting around the lake, or little lake, but that's the Baltic Sea is not a little lake, but we are all neighbors, and we are responsible for what's going on in the lake, in the Baltic Sea region. And I would say that Baltic Sea region has huge innovation potential and hundreds of world-class research institutions and thousands of different scientists. And Russia do participate in many different other areas. Like, for instance, yesterday I had a very large meeting with the Arctic Council, and recently with the Nordic Ministerial. So I mean to say that taking part in the European Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe, we do try to go with all our neighbors to cooperate and to find that common points where that's can be done in that way, that we can serve to make the let's say the climate and all that around Baltic Sea in a better way. For instance, tomorrow we will have with the European Union a joint committee where we will make just survey how it had been done during last year in spite of the pandemic, we had quite a lot of joint projects. We do participate in the Horizon 2020 in Horizon Europe, and we do participate in the all networks, the Euro networks, Euronet so-called, and also in the BSN. We have our leading universities, and which are in St. Petersburg. By the way, I graduated from the university in St. Petersburg, so I do somehow be in the coast of the Baltic Sea. I had visited several times our Baltic areas. And we have the branch of the Shirshov Institute in Kaliningrad, and in some in that areas they do participate in all the dimensions. Well, plus to that, what I would like to mention, you know, within last 3 years, we made, Russia made approximately 11 scientific expeditions by our research ships, research vessels. And what we are doing now, and we are trying to cooperate in the Arctic Council, because Russia now is chairing the Arctic Council, to make joint research and joint scientific expeditions. So we made 11 such expeditions with 5 different vessels. So can it be also arranged as an international expeditions with our colleagues, our neighbors, and our scientific institutions? Because that, in spite of I'm not a scientist, but I know that it's a very necessary thing to make the research in the Baltic Sea and the influence what our humans influence on the Baltic Sea region. And we created some new systems which helps to understand what's going on with the water resources and with the nature.
Okay.
Well, I can confirm that we do continue our cooperation with the Baltic Sea Network, and well, I would confirm again that also with the European Union, with the Horizon Europe, we will make quite a lot joint research, and we will make all whatever to be done that our scientists would be supported financially.
Thank you, Mr. Smirnov. I like this picture of the neighbors sitting around a lake, a big lake, and finding a way to let the scientists in that or around that lake cooperate well. It's 11:05 now, so I suggest that we would put the second and the third part, make it in one row. So I already announced we would talk about the limitations. We have had so many assets heard now. We just to name a few of them: the potential of innovation, the availability of infrastructure, the peacefulness of the region, the qualities as a problem solver has been named by Mr. Andrusitis. And I also found interesting the bridging of science and policy. So the third field of the Baltic Science Network is also a policy field, the welfare research. But if there is so much potential, so many assets, where do you see the limitations or challenges that you are facing? And I ask you just if you see the limitation also to make a suggestion how you could overcome them. So this is the open question to the panel now. What are the limitations and what are your ideas to overcome them? You're free to just answer, whoever wants. Mrs. Ratzo, you want?
Well, many thanks. I'd like to highlight perhaps one particular challenge looking ahead is that how to sustain investment in research and innovation. We know that now during the pandemic, there have been a lot of additional resources spent and also loans taken by governments and so on and so forth. But certainly the time will come where there will be more pressure on the budgets. And in these times, it's really important to continue to invest in research and innovation, because it's quite clear that when we look at the global challenges like climate change, environmental issues, not to mention that these are particularly also evident in the Baltic Sea itself, which is very much vulnerable. And certainly in order to find solutions to these, it's important to continue to invest. And that's why this is also part of the European research area objectives, is namely this continued efforts to invest. Namely, there are very clear targets, a new 1.25% of GDP public effort to be achieved by member states by 2030, and then voluntarily to commit to 5% of national public research development investment in joint programs and European partnerships by 2030. But what are then the solutions? As said, certainly one of the solutions is Horizon program itself. I already mentioned namely the partnerships and also the missions. And the missions really work with different objectives, and certainly 4 of those will be also related to climate change, and one of them is, for instance, on climate adaptation. Certainly, this is also something which would be very relevant for the Baltic Sea region, but also to achieve 100 climate neutral cities by 2030. There are also big cities in our region. But what I'd also like to highlight is that now we also have a bigger budget for widening participation and strengthening in Horizon Europe program. So in Horizon 2020 it was 1%, now it will be 3% invested. And just to give one example, a good example of also this collaboration as part of the teaming project, which is already started in Horizon 2020, is a project of Baltic University in cooperation with Aalto University. And this is a project of 32 million euros, of which 15 million comes from Horizon 2020. And really, this is the funding large-scale research projects in smart cities area in such a way that advanced partners can share their know-how. And now, finally, on ERA, certainly there's not time enough to mention all different peculiarities of that, but I just like to highlight of particular interest for the Baltic Sea regions could be then Commission's proposal to broaden year access services, a network and portals into an ERA talent platform, which will be an online one-stop shop with improved structure and governance. Then, in addition to research infrastructures, which were already mentioned, also there will be common industrial technology roadmaps also in order to make the whole region more competitive.
Thanks a lot. So there are already many options and funding instruments on the table. Thanks for that. Anyone else to to name limitations or challenges and solutions. Kajsa Paulsson, and so let us try to make a very quick round about this question before we open to the audience. So I saw Kajsa Paulsson and Jitka Vokoskovka and Andres Andrusitis also, and Mr. Smirnov. So just try to make a short pointed statement about this question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think having all these assets in the Baltic Sea region, that is fantastic. But the challenge then for us, and to some extent also a limitation, is that we are not enough aware what is out there. We need to have an increased awareness. We need to learn. I mean, in Halos, we have worked really hard here to get the life science sector aware of the great opportunities there is in using these type of large-scale facilities. But this is just a beginning. We have so much complementarity and we can create so much synergy if we increase the awareness. And that is not easy. We need to focus not only on individual organizations and individual projects, but we need to have more of a helicopter perspective more often. And there need to be ambassadors and persons that can present the broader picture in different organizations and at different levels and sectors. So I think we need to work with that, and also the mind shift. There is limits in the psychological factors. We are, as researchers and also in other sectors by nature, somewhat competitive, and we try to keep things to ourselves, but to work really efficiently for the region and towards the sustainable development goals, we need to be more open and share more resources, share more data, and find efficient ways to do that. And I think we can.
Thanks a lot, Kajsa. So Jitka, you all wanted to add something.
Thanks a lot. I think that Mrs. Paulsson basically took the words from my mouth. I wanted to say as well that for us, I think one of the challenges which still remains is really this increased cooperation between the science institutions among themselves, but also, as I mentioned earlier, with business actors. I think this is something where we really need to strengthen the linkages as much as possible. And as a solution, we really see that for the future funding period for the cohesion policy, the cooperation is one of their top priorities, cooperation between research sector and the business sector. That's one thing. And another is really the cooperation in innovation between the regions, among the regions, because this is something which is not really easy, combining finances, different legal frameworks and things like that. So this is why we have introduced a new instrument in this programming period, so-called I3, Interregional Innovation Investments, exactly to support projects and make this cooperation easier. So this is where we would like to concentrate really on projects which are ready to be brought to the market, to scale them up, to test, develop new solutions, and to really merge the strengths and all the assets which the regions have. And most importantly, we will also have one work package there, which will be really on building capacities of less developed regions to engage in this type of cooperation. Because I think what we see very clearly in the Baltic Sea region is that you have many regions which are really top performers. We are talking about this, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, or Germany, which are really at the top of research and innovation performance. But we also have regions which are not so well developed. And I think there we really need to help them to engage in this type of cooperation, to build the network, to build the awareness of what is out there and what the opportunities are. So this is what we will support as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jitka Vokaskova. Andres, you had some recommendations.
Very quick. Thank you very much, Marcus, before we go into the open part of the session, I would like, as a long time, many years, very sympathetic, very positive observer of development of the Baltic Sea, Science Network. Even before it started, we were discussing with Klaus and other colleagues about it. As I remember, I would like to summarize. Well, in some part, it will be a synthesis of the very many good words which were and very fair and correct words which were already said. From my perspective, I would suggest Baltic Sea Network to focus on those themes which really support the best agenda for the Baltic Sea region. It was already very indicative, you know, when, for instance, when our this morning storyteller Tilman Bunz was having this lecture, and also other speakers. Also, Mr. Smirnov from Russia was talking about seagoing expeditions and marine research and environmental research and climate. And we heard in the keynote speech about dioxin problem, about ice navigation, about oxygen depletion. So these are things which nobody else apart of us here in the Baltic Sea will solve. Same applies, of course, to, yes, I mentioned already climate, I mentioned geopolitical issues, socio-economic issues. That's one of my take-home messages or suggestions. The second one is, again, it has been mentioned many times, collaboration. Collaborate between and among silos, and collaborate between different networks and different initiatives and different programs. There are quite many. And from, if you look on the landscape, on the ecosystem, if you want to use this word, from outside, it looks rather messy, I would say. It would be good if there would be some kind of a structure of all those initiatives which are working towards developing a better science and innovation collaboration within the Baltic Sea region. Certainly don't create a bubble. Consider links and synergies with the North Sea region, first of all, but also consider the pan-European added value. We were already talking here this morning about the responsibilities of Forerunner and develop the links with other macro regions of Europe, first of all, and develop your strength. And I think one of the strength is the short-term and short-distance mobility of researchers. First of all, the young researchers. This is something very important. We have learned it in bonus as well when we asked our young researchers what they desire more. The long-term mobility is rather well developed. These structures work worldwide, and there are many mechanisms. And the young scientists said, we need more short distance and short-term mobility. And this is exactly the niche we have already seen that the Baltic Science Network has done quite a lot in this direction. And then finally, science diplomacy. This is a peaceful region, but we know very well that we have geopolitical issues, and I think science diplomacy is as more important as ever between different countries, different sovereignties acting in the Baltic Sea region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andres. Thank you very much. So, Viktor Smirnov, I think you are the one to finish the panel now. So, what Russia what challenges do you see, and what could Russia do to overcome them?
Well, I would not spend so much of the time. Andres, unfortunately, was the first, and as it was a little bit before he has eaten whatever I wanted to say, practically 99%. Thank you. I would just add a couple of words towards the same issue, actually. So we have quite intensive cooperation, but at the same time, I would say that we have even no attempts to launch macro regional project, any of the projects of scientific cooperation. just we have some just fragmented national research, well, on a bilateral or just projects, but not as a for the whole region. And I would say in that case that for our network, it's quite important to arrange and even for its unique chance to build a higher level discussion, at least for platform for micro-regional research dialogue, and to find that project, we can discuss a lot of things. We can spend a lot of time on showing how to do that. But I don't know, you are probably have heard there is some fairy tales which had been written in the Central Asia. You may hear, you may feel, you may discuss a lot of things about the taste of a certain sweet things, but until you start eating that, you wouldn't understand that little taste of that sweet. So I mean to say that we can say a lot how to do that, but I would not appeal. It's too strong to say appeal, but I would request our scientific organizations and from our, let's say, ministerial level, as Signe mentioned, we need to invest money for that, and so we need to help and to arrange joint projects, and not just bilateral. We have, for instance, a lot of bilateral projects with Germany. We have even a special agreement on a marine research, but I would say we need to make that projects all together and more large projects with macro-regional format.
So I understood the appeal is that cooperation is not only something to talk about, but it's something to practice. So there should be projects to do this. So I apologize to the audience that we talked a little bit longer than planned, but this is the last 7 minutes, the moment where you can put your questions in this Q&A tool. There already is one question. I do not really know how it's pronounced. Jislav Enkiene asked, what opportunities does Horizon Europe offer with regard to enhanced science cooperation at the macro-regional level? Signaratsu already said something to that. She talked about this 3% of widening budget. Is there anything else that should be named, or also maybe of Jitka Volkaskova to answer this question?
Well, yes, the widening is one part of that, certainly. Connecting ecosystems operating in synergy with cohesion policy. But we also have the ecosystems angle in the innovation part. Not only European Innovation Council, but also the part of the program in the third pillar, innovation pillar, will really also build links between innovation ecosystems and will also support and develop that. And as I already mentioned, also missions and European partnerships clearly are also the measures within the program where clearly this cooperation on a large scale and macro-regional cooperation can take place.
Thanks a lot. Jitka Volkaskova, do you want to add something there?
I think it's not exactly what the person had in mind, but in our interregional innovation investments, we will also have a possibility to, cooperate, but it's really linkages between researchers and industry. So that's another possibility for exchanges and for cooperation on our side.
Okay, Thank you. So there is another question of Wolf Born. He asked, in order to increase transparency and awareness on who is doing what in the Baltic Sea region, in my opinion, we should also rely on artificial intelligence. What is your opinion of this artificial AI-based cooperation tools? Asks Wolf Born. Any opinion?
Maybe I
on
can
that?
start to comment.
Yeah, Kaisa.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm happy to say that we at the Faculty of Medicine at Lund University, we have actually an action plan now for sustainability or sustainable development, and I'm leading one of the working groups, and the title of that working group is Active Cooperation. And we will and are already very much focusing on data handling and artificial intelligence. So it has to be thought into all of this, and we have to take advantage of the development. It's all around us, and we can and we should use it. Mm-hmm. So yes, agree, we should use it.
So this is really artificial intelligence used to foster cooperation. Can you name an example how this could work?
Yeah, actually, Baltic Science Network is sponsoring a small pilot project. There was a hackathon last year, and from that hackathon, we started a new collaboration around development of a virtual human body. And this virtual human body, we have this far started with the lung, so the lung tissues. You can go in with your Googles and you can look at the tissue and you can understand the composition, and you can use this as really tool to educate people, create awareness about methods, and in the long run you can also use it hopefully for diagnostic or prognostic purposes when you have different sets trained and a more full concept developed. So I don't know if this is exactly an answer, but I think we are here trying to work with new techniques, making data and information available to as many people as possible.
Thank you very much, Kaisa. So I don't, well, there is last, I think this is the last question we can take. It comes from Sinika Sumalainen. She asked, what could be done at EU and BSR, Baltic Science Region level, to better support not only the big players, but especially the small but excellent universities? Who wants to answer that? Any one of you?
I can try. I think that for cohesion policy, it doesn't really matter whether small or big university. If you have a good project, then please, contact your managing authority and see what are the funding opportunities. And I think we will be more than happy to finance it. So, really, I think the opportunities are there. From infrastructure to all cooperation projects. If you have something which is promising, I think it's good to check what the funding opportunities are.
Okay.
If I may also add,
yeah.
that particularly in Horizon Europe, we really made efforts in order to then to go beyond the usual suspects and really increase the opportunities also for both SMEs, but also for the smaller universities, well, particularly in the European partnerships. One of the underlying features has been really openness, in order to have more partners, not only these who have been already the usual partners in many of the partnerships, starting from hydrogen to aeronautics, but also really to include smaller players. So there has been really a particular effort in order to do so. So, I'd like to encourage you all really to apply. As it was mentioned, I think by Mr. Andrusitis, that we've been a bit delayed in terms of our work programs. But the first ones, the ERC and the EIC, have already started, and we really hope that now in the coming weeks we can also publish the first work program, big work program for Pillar 2 for the first 2 years. So.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Andres, I saw you wanted to add something, but we want to do a little experiment with the panel and with the audience as well, to make possible that they go into direct conversation with you. So maybe we postpone your comment, Andres, to this what we call the coffee break with the panelists. We have been talking for more than 2 hours now, so I know that's always hard to listen all the time at the screen, and it's a pity that we are not in a big conference room somewhere in the Baltic. But to make it possible that you get in touch yourself with the panelists, we want to change now to a platform called Wonder. This is one of these platforms that popped up in the pandemic and that are very useful to give this conference feeling. So let me briefly explain how to use it. Later on, there will be a link posted in the chat, or I think it's already posted. Don't click it right now, because then you will be gone. When you click it, there will be a short check-in routine where you enter a name, allow the program to use your camera and microphone, and it will take a short photo of you. This will be kind of your avatar or your profile photo. For the speakers, it's important that before you enter Wonder, please switch off your camera here, because your computer will not be able to give the camera to 2 programs. And after that, you will find yourself in a room with different tables, and every speaker has a table, and the speakers are asked to move their own circle to that table. And the idea is, if 2 circles get in touch, then you can talk to this person. So you can, like in a conference room, approach anyone and start a conversation with him, informal conversation, no speeches, just as a chat at the bistro table in the foyer of a conference. You can move your circle either with the arrow keys or with the mouse. With the mouse, you have to just point to where you want to go, keep the left mouse button pressed, and the circle will move into that direction. So I hope you have a nice experience there. There are some more functions on the right side to find certain participants, but I think this is all self-explaining. It's important you can leave Zoom open, but the speakers should have their microphone off in that time. And we will meet here at 12 o'clock again. At 12 o'clock, Klaus von Melipel will present some key results of 5 years of Baltic Science Network. So I hope to see everybody here at 12 o'clock, and enjoy the coffee break, take a coffee and take a short break, and then maybe get in touch with our speakers. Thanks a lot to the panel for being here and for your bright ideas and thoughts and arguments. It was a pleasure to try and organize this discussion, and I will meet you then in Wonder in a couple of minutes. The floor is yours, Mr. von Lepel. I already presented you before, so what you will tell now is the key results, and you wanted to take us on a journey somehow from the beginning of the Baltic Science Network into the future, as far as I understood you, so I'm interested to take part in that journey.
Yeah, thank you very much, and a warm welcome from the side of Bsn to all participants. Niklas, could you start my presentation? Great, wonderful. So, where did the journey begin 5 years ago? Markus already mentioned Bsn is now 5 years old, and we started next one, please. Next one. And we started actually in turbulent waters 5 years ago. Next one. First of all, you might wonder why we have chosen the Marco region as a political coordination framework for the Bsn exercise. Because most of you know that science policy take place normally on a regional or national level or on a EU level. But we decided that the macro region could be an interesting experience for science policy to cooperate in a more closer way as well. Why? First of all, short distance for the researchers and also for the politicians. Second one, if you look at the macro region, we have we have quite a lot of very, very good universities and research organizations who are just next to each other. We believe that if we manage to increase cooperation between them, we can create a win-win situation for all of us. So that means regional proximity eases the way for cooperation. The second one was that we have a similarity of cultures in how to tackle scientific problems, how to cooperate. There is a kind of, it is much easier for a German or Swedish scientist to cooperate with his Estonian or Norwegian colleague rather than with his Chinese colleague, even if they are all talking in English or communicating in English, because the way of thinking, the way of organizing, the way of problem solving is much closer in this region because of this cultural similarities. Third point why we have chosen the macro region was to say widening and the involvement of EU 13 countries is easier to tackle at the macro regional level than on the EU level. It was mentioned already before, we have a kind of an innovation gap, and I think to overcome this innovation gap, we need regional solutions. And last but not least, it was of course easy because we already could build on already well-established regional networks. Therefore, we decided it might be worth to have a look on the macro region as a bottom-up approach for pan-European integration. Next one, please. Next one. How was the status quo before when BSN started to work actually in the fields of science and research policy? First of all, we were facing a quite heterogeneous landscape with partially fragmented efforts in the fields of science and research policy. There was a lack of a macro-regional dimension in this science policy, and there was even no body or no platform or no institution where transnational dialogue about science and research cooperation could take place. And furthermore, evaluation revealed that research consortia from the region were underrepresented in EU-funded projects, despite of the excellence research which was done or is done at our universities and our research organizations. And last but not least, we already discussed this morning, there was a clear brain drain from the east to the west, and not only from the Baltic states and Poland to the Scandinavians, but also from the Scandinavian states to even further to the west. So having this in mind and this situation, we started to form BSN. Next one, please. We started to form our partnership. Our idea was to bring key decision makers in the fields of science policy onto one table, actually. So our partnerships consists in the end of 20 organizations from all EU member states in the region, as well as from Russia and from Norway. And the mixed partner structure is a decisive asset of our project. We managed to bring on one table regional ministries of science, national ministries, universities, research organizations, funding agencies, and international actors as well. So this unique mixture was what was decisive for BSN. Next one, please. In a couple of years, we managed to position Baltic Science Network in the middle of the existing cooperation structure which exists in the BSR. So we are a flagship within the EU's BSR, within PA education. And we also managed to become one of the cornerstones of the CBSS agenda on science, research, and innovation. Next one. Actually, Baltic Science Network couldn't cover everything. So we had to focus. And we decided to focus on three thematic areas. The first one was research and innovation excellence. The second one was, as already said, mobility in research and higher education. And the third one was widening participation. Next one, please. We started our work by scientifically examining the status quo of science cooperation. Because as I already said before, science policy takes place has taken place so far on a national or on an EU level, which also means that data which is available is mainly focused on a national level or on an EU level. Macro-regional data was simply not existing. So knowledge production was quite important for us in the first period of Baltic Science Network. So we commissioned a couple of research of studies and working papers, as you can see, in order to understand which are the obstacles which are hindering science cooperation in the BSR and how we can overcome this kind of barriers. Next one. But in the end, despite of all studies and working papers, science cooperation is a people's business. Interaction, exchange of views, exchange of ideas is what really matters. To bring scientists and politicians from our region together on one table, to start a dialogue, or even controversial debates, and the search for joint solutions. That is what makes the BSN experience so inspiring and so interesting and so fascinating for all of us. Next one, please. But BSN also delivered. We were not only talking and analyzing, we also delivered solutions on how to overcome the obstacles and to create favorable framework conditions for more intensified science cooperation in our region. First of all, we identified clusters of scientific excellence in the field of photon, neutron science, of life science, of welfare states, and we organized and we analyzed a combination of strategies how to further this excellence in this field. Secondly, we developed a wide range of mobility tools tailor-made for the need of the BSR. Because in our first analysis, there are a lot of mobility tools existing within the European Union, but there were no mobility tools which matches the specific needs of our region. So our aim was to create mobility tools who are tailor-made for the region, who would help us to increase the interregional mobility within the BSR. And we match that with a unique funding mechanisms in order also to finance this kind of mobility. And last but not least, we contributed quite intensively in the EU-wide debate regarding Horizon Europe, and especially in the field of widening participation. Next one, please. After 3 years, the first period of BSN ended. Then we luckily got an extension stage, which means 1.5 year additional funding from the Interact program, which we are very thankful for. And we decided to use this money to put some of our findings from the first period into reality, into practice. So the Bsn Powerhouse Project was born. Next one, please. So Bsn Powerhouse concentrated on 2 concrete support instruments, and we tried to test them out on the ground. The first one is the Launchpad Research Infrastructure Connectors. With this instrument, we tried to tackle widening participation in order by connecting the large-scale infrastructures existing in the region with smaller universities and smaller research institutions from other BSR countries. And we concentrated that in the field of photon and neutron science. And secondly, we established the Baltic Science Network Mobility Program for Research Internship, shortly BARI, called BARI. BARI offered doctoral students the possibility within their doctoral studies to hire a master and bachelor students for research internship from another BSR country, of course. And we organized this matchmaking, and we also organized a scholarship for the student in order to travel to the other country and to make this internship. And then the pandemic forced us quite badly. To test the mobility tool and to organize matchmaking between researchers in times where no one was allowed to travel is quite a tough job, we have to say. We had to rethink and restructure all our ideas and to transform them into a digital format. And we managed to do that, I have to say. You can see here how we did that with the Launchpad Research Infrastructure Connectors. First of all, we organized a symposium, a completely online conference where the large-scale research infrastructures existing in the region presented themselves to the research community. This symposium was followed by a hackathon, 7 days hackathon, which were used to make a matchmaking between the research infrastructures with this research community and to form and formulate projects in small teams and to create ideas. These ideas were presented at a forum afterwards, and a set of expert panels evaluated this kind of ideas which came out from the hackathon. And last but not least, they decided and they selected four projects from this hackathon for funding, and we organized them some kind of funding in order to get a special coaching. First of all, they got feedback, of course, for the project idea, and then they got individually tailor-made coaching activities for every project. Next one, please. So the end was 4 project teams are currently receiving support for further development. Countries involved in this project are quite widely covering the whole range of the Baltic Sea region. Estonia is on board, Finland, France, Germany, Latvia, Lithuania, Russia, and Sweden. Most of the large-scale research infrastructures existing in the region are involved in this experience. So we can sum up that the pandemic turned the concept upside down of our idea. But in the end, the virtual approach made it even more innovative, more flexible, and more open to a wider audience. So in the end, we have to say that this digital format was a bonus for us. Next one, please. A little bit more difficult was the situation within the BARI mobility program. Mobility was greatly challenged by the pandemic, we have to say. We also have to revise our concept in this field, and we try to create the greatest possible flexibility within our project. And in the end, I have to say, we managed to organize and to finance 60 matches, which were realized in the end and confirmed. 60 matches between PhD student and a master student in order to make this internship really happen. 25 of them are already finished and 35 of them are ongoing or planned. This first 25 mostly took place during last summer, and the other one are going to take place right now. Next one, please. It was quite interesting to see the enthusiastic feedback which we got from the PhD students and which we got also from the master students showed us that we were on the right track, that this kind of instrument for short-term mobility, short distance mobility, as Andres said it this morning, was something which the people wanted to have and which was also positively received. So the evaluation showed us a high satisfaction of the participants. BARI program is a highly flexible and efficient tool, and we managed, and that is quite interesting to see. to combine without a common pot 12 different funding sources in order to make BARI happen. And that is, I think, a really unique funding mechanism which we created there, which has really a pilot character also for the future. Next one, please. Yeah, you can see here a couple of the enthusiastic feedbacks I mentioned, and that was something which gave us the power and the enthusiasm back and to say, okay, pandemia is out there, but we also have some customers, so-called customers, who are very happy with our instrument, and we could really make an effort to make Baltic Science Research Cooperation happen on a concrete basis. Next one, please. So this enthusiastic feedback showed us that there is a high interest in research cooperation in the Baltic Sea region, even in time of pandemic. BARI and the Launchpad matched these demands and have proved to be flexible tools to foster cooperation. And last but not least, both instruments have been successfully tested and developed further during this pilot phase. Next one, please. But what's next? We started, as I said, in the first period the first period was characterized by analyzing and strategy and concept development. Our second period of BSN was pilot actions, putting ideas into concrete practice. And now, how are we going to continue this BSN experience? How does the future of BSN will look like? Next one, please. Actually, we did that, in order to find out how the future could look like, we did that, what ministry like to do in such situation. We asked our experts. So we created a vision process, a BSN vision process 2030, where we asked 25 external experts from the BSR region to give us their view on that, what we have been doing in BSN in the last 4 years. Giving a feedback, giving some criticism, giving some new input. That was important for us, and we organized that in 4 vision workshops. And out of these vision workshops, we as a lead partner tried to formulate a BSN vision for a BSN vision 2030. And afterwards, we took this vision paper to our partners and to our associates to discuss this paper internal with and to consult this paper with them, and in order to find a common vision for all of us. Next one, please. And the last minutes, I will try to give you some insights to this new vision. You will find this vision paper on our website after this conference. One of the key, first of all, what is the role of BSN? I think it was quite clear in most of these vision workshops that we need a common voice for science and research, for the science and research community at the macro-regional level. And BSN could be something, is an organization which could coordinate and be this voice for them in the macro region. Secondly, I think BSN could act in the future as a coordinator, as a joint platform to initiate joint projects and initiatives among members and others. I think Kaiser has shown us very good this morning in the panel how that we don't have to compete with each other. I think if we cooperate with the different projects which are existing in the region, and if we combine there, we can create synergies. And the synergies between BSN and Halos has been showing and has been proving and showing evidence that this coordination function is also of high interest and high importance for the future of BSN. And last but not least, BSN could act as a project enabler to foster cooperation of scientists and researchers on the ground and to create favorable framework conditions for them, because we have ministries and we have funding agencies on board who could help them to find solutions in order to make their concrete scientific project happen. Next one, please. So what will be the thematic focus of BSN in the future? I think, first of all, we will continue the 3 thematic priority areas which we have decided on. That is life science, photoneutron science, and social sciences. As well as we will continue in our cross-cutting issues like research, infrastructure, cooperation, mobility, and strategy making. But nevertheless, in the future, we have to allow also a flexible choice of additional topics. Like, and this could be interdisciplinary or cross-cutting, like already mentioned this morning, green transition, sustainability, digitalization, maritime affairs, COVID recovery, in terms of medical, in terms of preparedness, and in terms of employment, maybe also security and peace studies. So there's a wide range of additional topics which where BSN could focus on. But it is dependent on the members, on the initiatives, on the scientists, on the people, on which topics we should really concentrate. Next one, please. The added value of BSN was the diversified voice it represents, I have to say. So this heterogeneity and this multi-level governance is on the one hand our strength, but it was also on the other hand our weakness, I have to say. To coordinate a multi-level governance network is quite a challenging task, I can say. And sometimes it is difficult to explain what is the added value of such a cooperation. Because we have a tendency that everybody would like to talk and to think in their own silos, as Jitka said us this already, or as Jitka mentioned it already this morning. Ministries like to talk with ministries. For universities, it's much easier to find common ground with other universities, and funding agencies still have their own world. So it is quite comfortable only to talk with the same partners from other countries. But it is time to overcome this kind of silos thinking. Only interdisciplinarity and cross-institutional dialogue will really create new ideas, will create creativity, will create innovation. And we have to be brave to start such a process, even if we don't know where they will end in the end. So it is a kind of an open expedition into the future. And that means for us that we will continue with this multi-level network. We will be open for new members. We will encourage our existing members to actively initiate common projects and initiatives. And we would also try, or we will enhance our efforts to integrate countries currently not represented in the network. Next one, please. Third one is international cooperation. At the moment, it was already touched in the morning panel as well. Democracy, the freedom of speech, the freedom of thinking, and even independence of academic institutions is under pressure nowadays in some parts of the world. That means in order to interact against these tendencies, these anti-democratic tendencies, and to counterbalance them, international cooperation is more important. International cooperation is more important than even before. I think Andres mentioned it with the terms of science diplomacy. We need this kind of international corporations, and therefore BSN will continue its efforts to integrate into and make use of the existing policy frameworks such as EU-SPSR and CBSS. In the future, we will also try to strengthen our cooperation with other organizations, programs, and initiatives, like, for example, this new instrument of European universities, or to even intensify our cooperation with the Nordic Council of Ministers. And last but not least, we also will strengthen our efforts to position macro-regional aspects and macro-regional thinking in research and science policy on the EU level, but also at the same time on the national and regional levels within our countries. And next one, please. So in the end, I have to say, let me sum up. I would say BSN has proven to be a strong voice of the BSR science community. The concept for the continuation of Launchpad and BARI will be finalized in July, and you will discuss the actual ideas in the afternoon in the different workshops. BSN will continue and welcomes new members to join. And I think we have proved that BSN can serve as a role model also for other macro regions. We started our BSN journey in turbulent waters, but after 5 years, our intellectual horizon has widened. Today we are sailing in calmed waters and there's land in sight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. from Lippo. Thank you for this journey that ended with a nice sailing picture. And calm waters is a nice picture for the presence of the Baltic Science Network and the idea to find new shores and new goals in the future.